in this tutorial, we're going to be making the prototype for the bag on the screen. These are the measurements that we are going to be using. For the length, we'll be using 11 inches, for the height 10, and then for the width 3 inches. So what does that mean? This is the length, or how wide, but for the sake of this class we're calling it the length of the bag, and that is what we are taking as 11 inches. The height is how tall, and that's what we are taking as 10 inches, and the width is the width of the base, okay, or of the gusset, and that is what we are taking as 3 inches. And based on the principle of this gusset construction method, you divide your width, that's your base width, you divide it by 2. So that's 3 divided by 2. What you would have is 1.5, and that is what I have measured here. So what we have here is 1.5. What you see here is my allowance, which is 0.5, and it is for me to gum the prototype together. So while this is half of the width of the bag, then this is going to be the length. So after the half width of the bag, you're going to go in with the measurements of your length, which is 11 inches. So what we have here is 11 inches. After that, you're going to go with the half width again, which is 1.5, then your gumming allowance, which is 0.5. So what I have here is the front of the bag, then the base of the bag, and then the back of the bag. Okay, we know that we do not need this, so that means it has to go. But for the sake of the bag that we're trying to replicate in this video, the bottom part of the base is not straight. The bottom part of the base is not straight, so this cannot be straight. So we cannot just cut this out just like that. The bottom of the bag comes like this. Okay, if you look at the bag picture very well, the bottom comes like a V, like a V like this outward. So that means we have to make this to look like this. So in order to do that, you just take your ruler and then you measure by how much you want the V to come out. So let's say 0.5 is okay for us. 0.5. So you come here as well and you take 0.5. Now you're going to mark the midpoint of this. So this is 3 inches like we established. That means the midpoint is going to be 1.5. So that 1.5 joins with this, so it gives us a central point from here as well. 1.5. So this also gives us a central point to work with. Now what you're going to do is that you're going to slant. So from this place where the gusset, the base, and the front panel meet, that is this point, from this point you're going to slant towards this central point that you just marked on your base. So you do the same thing for this side as well, and then this side. So from that midpoint, that central point, mark it to the central point and back to this central point. And this is what you have. So I'm going to use this small pattern. This is like a mini pattern to the one we were creating originally. I'm going to use it to illustrate how you will cut the gusset. Okay, so how you will slant the gusset to match with this V, and in order to match with what we are trying to create on the bag. So the initial pattern followed a different route, but I'm going to show you the exact route to follow on this. So this is the one that you should use, even though we'll continue with that initial pattern. So after you have created this slant on the base of the bag, so this is the base of the bag, this pattern is one-sided, there's no second side. So I'm just using this part to illustrate this pattern to you. So after you have done the slants on the base part, so for the gusset as well, so the bag came in such a way that this looked like it was a V, this looked like a V, then the gusset came downwards, and then the gusset, made that V like this. It made the bag to look something like this, such that the bag is not sitting on all its base. A part of the base is raising up. If you look at the bag closely, you realize a part of the base is raising up. So that means this gusset came downwards in a way that it pushed this base, it pushed it downwards, right? And then a part of the base raised up. So we are going to do that so that we'll make the length of the gusset to be longer than it is supposed to be. So now that we have done this to the pattern, we used 1/2 inch. So you're going to take your gusset as well. So from this line, you're also going to mark 1/2 inch into the base. So you mark 1/2 inch here, and you mark 1/2 inch here, and you're going to slant. So you're going to slant from this point where you took the base, you're going to slant here. So you're changing the direction. So instead of it being straight like this, we are now making it to come like this. So you're basically slanting it into your main gusset line. So the allowance that is here, you don't have to bother about it. So you're slanting from this point to your main gusset line. They just, this one is just for allowance, so you don't have to make any mark on it, but of course you still have to cut it with it. So this one as well, you do the same thing. You are taking it to your main gusset line, and then you can go any direction on your allowance. So you're going to cut this out. So this is what you're going to have here. So you can see the shape. This is what you're going to have here. So you bring this together, start joining this to this. So this is what we have. So we have this way. So by the time you bring this together, so I've sellotaped both of them together. So if you flatten the gusset here, it is not bent. So this is what you would have. So you can see the shape of the gusset. So this is the shape to follow, because this is quite different. What I just illustrated here is quite different from the one in the pattern that we were following. So we'll continue with that pattern now, but this is how to get the shape of the bottom. So it is important to know that the difference between this gusset that I illustrated with this pattern and the gusset that we're going with originally is that the gusset for this one, that is this one, the perfect one, we brought it down. We brought the pattern down. We measured 1/2 inch here and we brought it down this way. Measured 1/2 inch here, that's into the gusset, into the base of the bag, and then we marked it and measured it this way, and that was how we cut the pattern. But the initial pattern that we were following, it was measured upwards. So it was measured, the 1/2 inch was measured upward away from the base of the bag, so it looks more like this instead. Okay, looked more like this instead of this. Instead of it coming into the base like this, the leg, that's the gusset, went outward. So that's the difference between this pattern and the pattern that we were following originally, that we will still continue with. So in case that you see me talking about slanting the top of your bag towards this point, for this pattern now that we are using, this new one that I just said that will give you this shape, you are slanting towards this one. You're slanting towards this point here. Okay, that is your new line. So this line here, instead of moving it up as in the case of the initial pattern that we may still continue with, we moved it down. So this is the new line. So instead of slanting towards this line originally in your normal pattern, you're slanting towards this new line. So please take note in case that there's any reference to you slanting towards it and you're wondering where did we make a line towards it. No, the line is supposed to be here, as the case if you want to achieve this exact gusset. For the front of the bag, so allow me to fold this into two so that we can only work with half the pattern, and whatever we do on one side reflects on the second side as well. So the bag is not straight to the top. So the bag looks more like this on the front side of it, so it looks more like this. So it is not straight up like this, the bag is slanted, so that means we have to slant this. So in order to slant, you just, by how much you want to slant the bag, so I would like to shift the bag inwards and slant by 1 inch. So I want to reduce the top by 1 inch. So I'm marking that line within the confine of the length of the bag. Okay, within the confine of the length of the bag. Now if this is the length of the bag straight like this, that means the bottom part of the front is going to be wide, while the bag itself will be slanted inwards this way. So that is why I am working within the confines. I'm not working with the gusset now, I'm working within the confines of the front of the bag, within the confines of the length. And I'm going to take this and slant here, take this as well, slant from here, so that marks the slant for your bag. So you've created the slant for your bag, which is of course this line. That now for the gusset, the handle of the bag is holding onto a part of the gusset here, so you will take that measurement as well. So whatever you want to be at the top of this part, of the top of this front where your handle is going to be holding onto, that is what you're going to add. So after the slanted line, you're going to take that measurement and add to it. So if the total you want to be here is 1 inch, that means this part donates half, the part coming from this side also donates half to this top part, and then it forms the top part of the gusset. Also, when you're taking your curved side, okay, the part that is going to cover here as well, where the handle is going to hold on to, right, you also take that measurement. So if it is ½ inch you are using here, you can also use ½ inch here, or you can even use 1 inch, so that this part and this part, they can slip on each other. Okay, so but then the measurement you take after the front into the bag to start your curve, that's the one that folds into this place where your handle is sitting on. And then the parts, the measurement you take after the slanted line for your front is the part that forms the top part of the gusset at this end. I'm going to use 1 inch for this. So this 1 inch, remember that 1 inch is what we shifted in here, so we'll leave this 1 inch for the top of the bag, the one that is going to go in here and in here. So this same 1 inch, we are going to bring it down to our central points. So we now have our new line. Then do not forget your gumming allowance, so you had your 0.5 as well. So what we now have is 3 lines. This is the gusset, this is the front of the bag, and then this is the allowance for gumming together. So you also mark this. So this is coming, this allowance is coming to this end. Remember that this is the line for our allowance, so this is where the allowance extends to. So just bring it down here. So the same thing for this. This is our 1 inch. So this is the front. We'll take this 1 inch as the gusset. So it is the third line that I am cutting out. That's the one for the allowance. That's the one I'm cutting out. So don't get confused and cut any other line. So we have our front, we have the gusset, and then we have the allowance for gumming. Okay, so for this as well, we're also going to cut this out. But before we cut this out, you want to ensure that this also has allowance for you to fold. So I'll just create a tiny piece. Okay, so for the sewing allowance for this as well, so just create a line for the sewing allowance. Then we're going to cut out this as well. So we follow the sewing allowance, this gumming allowance that we left. Then this one will cut on the exact pattern line, then it will meet the allowance we created. So instead of cutting from here to here, just cut to this point where the gumming allowance is. So you can create this line, and then this can fold away, so giving you the exact same line that you need. So instead of cutting this away, I'll just fold it because I will use it to gum later. So I'm folding exactly on the line, and this is what we would have. So I'll do the same thing for this. Cutting away, I'll just fold. So this this is what our pattern now looks like. So according to the design, there's like this design in front, so we're going to put the design on the bag. So in order to do that, you measure where you want the the bag to start from. All these parts now, they are just design, all these top parts, so you measure where you want the design to start from. Since this is 10 inches, so we'll just take less than half of it, and less than half will be 4 inches. So we'll take 4 inches for this. Then you're also going to measure the midpoint. So this is 11 inches. The midpoint is going to be 5.5. So you take that 5.5 measurements, and then you determine the width of your design at the top. So the width of this front design, determine it, and I think 3 inches is about okay for us. So that's 1.5 inches to each side. Or let's use 2.5. So if we're going to be using 2.5, that's 1.75 each instead of 1 point. So 2.5 instead of 3 inches. So this new point, this 2.5, distance from here to here is 2.5. So from this point, you mark to this central point also. Now once you have this way, the next thing is you want to bring out this curve that is going to be at the top. Curve that is going to come here, that's this curve. You want it to enter into the bag a bit, so you're going to take half inch into the bag, or whatever measurement you can take into the bag. I don't want the bag to be too short because this is the total height of the bag now, so I don't want it to be too short. So I'll just take this 0.3, just like this. And you're going to take a curved object. So I'm using the cover of my gum, and I'm just going to, so this is the midpoint. I'm still going to drop down the midpoint of this. So just do this on this side as well. And you're slanting it towards this area. I'm taking it to be half inch away from here. That's away from the front of the bag, so just half inch from here. Then I want to extend this as well so that the curve comes out more and this comes down. So rather than being wide, I just want it to come down a little bit. I don't want it to be too wide. So let's see if we can still use this to connect this point. So I'm just going to take this and use it to cut the other end. So once you get to the midpoint, you fold this to meet. So remember that you're going to take half inch from this front point. So you take this, fold it, and then till it meets this point. So you draw the line, and that's the line that you would follow. So this is what we would have for the handle of the bag, and our bag will come curved downwards. So basically this is it for this. So the full pattern is going to look more like this when you are done. So for this part of the bag, you don't just want it to be this pen line that is defining it. So what you can do is to change the color of the pattern here, and one way to do that is to cut out this pattern and impute another color of material on it. So let us try and impute color blue on this. So we'll cut this out. So you can see this allowance I left here, that is going to be for the gumming. So I will have to gum it back to where I removed it. So I will need this allowance, and that's why I had to leave it. Then on this side as well, remember that I cut out something from here and from here. So I also need allowance for that. So I'm going to leave allowance on this end. So I'm drawing the extension for the allowance. And I'm just going to go ahead and join this. I'm joining this. So I'll cut this out. So this is the new pattern. This blue one is the new pattern, and we are going to gum it back to this. You're done with that. Next thing that you want to do is you want to fix the flap of the bag. So here I have made some cutting out for the flap of the bag. This is the interior flap and this is the exterior flap, and both measures, this measures 3.5 inches by 5.5. I use random measurements, and this is 6.5 by 2.5 inches, and this is what I'm going to be using to add the design to the front of the bag. So in order to do this, you would want to create like a curve on this. Okay, so just for this to be able to hold the circle well, so you just form this shape on this, and you can go ahead to bend this way and effect it so that it is rhyme. Now that you have done this, I'm applying gum on this. So you place your circle. So this is just a random paper that I cut as a circle. This inside. So I'll take the outward flap. That's the 2.5 by 6, and I'm going to so for this to rhyme with this, just basically create a slant. So this is for the exterior flap, and depending on where you want as the exterior of your bag, let's say that we want the, let's make this the exterior of the bag, even though it already has lines. So the back of the bag, this design is the front, here is the back of the bag. So you're going to take this and put on the back of the bag. So I'm just using my eyes to gauge 1.5. I'm gauging 1.5 inch for this. It has to be on the midpoint. So this is the exterior flap. Then for the interior flap, also apply your gum and you place here. So for this, I'm also envisioning 1.5 as the depth. So define your base as you fold it this way, and this end as well. Define your base. That's your 3 inches. So this is going to go in here, while this is going to come this way. So you're going to gum this. So the next thing that you're going to do is cut out one form of this, one part of this allowance. You're going to cut it off. So let's cut this one here. So here I'm going to mark out the 0.5 inch for the allowance. Remember that the allowance was both on the front and the back because we cut it equally, but you remove allowance from one of them. So the allowance on this end, I'm going to just bring it so that it becomes something I can space, and that's where I'm going to apply my gum. So you gum this together, ensure that this line is falling on this 1/2 inch line that you drew. You're going to start from the base. So starting from the base, so I'm making sure that it is falling on the exact line that I marked for the allowance. I'm just going to trace that up. So after you've gummed the side, you have this excess that you left, the allowance that you left, you have it on the base parts of the bag. So you're going to fold that over here to gum the base. So that's what you're going to use to stick the gusset to the base. Okay, so you stick the front and you would have this. So for this, we're going to define it inwards. So this central point. So we need our handle at this point. So this is the handle that we'll be using. You fold into 2. So when you're almost at the end, at around 1.5 inch, so just create this slit at this end. Don't allow this to cover up. Same thing at this end as well. Don't allow this to cover up, but allow this middle part to cover. Then you take your fold. So just make sure that this is touching each other. So we are opening this up to cover this. So this is the back view, and this is the front view of the bag, and this is what it looks like.